All right, welcome back. Mad Science Meets Real Life, episode 5. Gee, we're old hands at this now, aren't we? We're getting very experienced. We've got a fun one this time around because we have a guest, and this particular guest I am a massive fan of, and have been following his work for quite some time. I warned him before we came on that I could be just fanboying this entire episode, so just prepare yourself for that. But we have Johan Röjler, who is the coach of Nils van der Poel, who I'm sure that everyone following along this episode is familiar with the story of Nils by now, with myself and Gordo recounting it on the regular over the past couple of years, and Iñaki as well. I know was very inspired by the whole thing. But yeah, let's give the full intro that Johan is worthy of. Iñaki, give me the highlights of Johan and what sort of impact he's had on your relationship as a coach and athlete.
Great. So first of all, thank you, Johan, for joining us from Sweden. I know we are in the same time zone, so much appreciated because probably you have stuff to do. But thrilled to have you here sharing with us. And briefly on Johan, 3 times Olympian himself, junior world champion, professional skier for many years. I think you are coach since, officially, I would say coach since about 2010, but probably you started experimenting a bit earlier than that as well. Yeah, I mean, just a super solid, pragmatic coach when it comes to strategy, physiology, psychology, but particularly when it comes to sustainability, what I call real coaching, not basically squeezing the athlete, but actually flourishing with the athlete. So, yeah, awarded in 2023 Leader of the Year, which I think it's short to what he should have, but big fan of you. I would really later on the podcast would like to get more into the youth development of talents and particularly on the acute sensitivity you have for overtraining and load management, as well as the simplicity when you are approaching sport, even though it's very complex, particularly skating with such a technical part. But once said this, maybe you want to jump in and say a few words yourself, Johan.
Thank you both guys for the kind words. I am very honored to be a guest here. I've been listening to, I think I've listened to all of you guys' podcasts. And as Alan was touching a little bit before, uh, from my side of things, getting into coaching, I was during my own career, I was partly self-coached, and for me, for some of the years, at least, I was self-coached. And after when I done my last Olympics in 2010, I actually looked this up yesterday. Pretty soon I had been a big fan of Phil Maffetone and had been reading lots of his work already starting, I think, early 2000s. I started to read his work, and it influenced me in my own skating career a lot. Maybe we get into it later. But sometimes in the early, like 2010s, 2011, I had my first contacts with the Endurance Corner website and started to read some of the stuff around. I was also inspired, and for myself, I was looking for longer challenges because for my own career, speed skating as longest distance takes. For me, it took just about 13 minutes, and I was always interested in doing longer stuff, which which then got me into some ultra running, and I did that for a couple of years and for myself. But I already at that time I was reading stuff from Gordo and stuff that Alan wrote, and and I was always inspired by the clarity and um, how like applicable the advice was in the articles. So it was really inspiring as a, yeah, I was already, I was coaching some youth skaters at that time already, and I had been coaching, I was self-coaching a couple of years and coaching some other skaters during the end of my career. Yeah, so it's great to be here, and really look forward to this talk.
Yeah,
That's
likewise.
great.
I
That's
think,
great, Johan.
yeah, I think speaking for myself, Johan, there's a saying that the most frustrated athletes make the best coaches, and you know, the coaches that have made all of the mistakes and you know, had things in their career that they maybe weren't you know, weren't big fans of, go on to help athletes not achieve those same mistakes, you know, to not have to go through that. So, you know,
Yeah.
to kick things off, I would love to hear from you. What were some of those dumb things that happened during your development as an athlete that motivated you to say, I want to help other athletes not have to go through that?
Yeah. Yeah, there were lots of them, I guess. Starting off, I think I wrote about it. I wrote about this on my recently started Substack just a week ago or something. That I was a really good junior skater. I won the junior world champs, and I from a position where I think most, if you would talk to most of the speed skating coaches of that era, they would say that what I did was impossible. As a Swede, we didn't have, there wasn't a lot of, I mean, there's tradition for the sport in Sweden, but there wasn't a big program or anything at the time. There was some junior camps that I went to, but I did most of the important training at, yeah, with my club coach. Uh, and um, and also in my hometown, we have a, like the ice rink here is only 250 meters, so it's a shorter rink compared to the racing is like Olympic races, and the big races are done on 400-meter tracks. So a 250-meter track is, the corners are about the same, but the straightaways are much shorter. So if you, maybe I would do 2 or 4 strides on a straightaway, 2 or 4 push-ups, and on the big track, it's normally it's, yeah, at that age I was probably doing 8 to 10 normally on the big track. So it was, but that was pretty good because corners are most important. Straightaways, if you want to be the best, straightaways are also important, but if you have to choose, I think it's better that you get a lot of practice on the corners. Anyways, so from that, I became junior world champion in that with my club coach, and then I had an offer to go train with really one of the best teams in the world in the Netherlands. The sport was at that time just starting to get really professional in the Netherlands, so they had and I just finished my, I think it corresponds to high school. So I just finished high school in Sweden, or I was finishing that spring after I won the junior world champs first time. So I got the offer to go with that team, many Olympic medalists, really great group of people. But for me, you know, was a lot of stress moving to another place, traveling all the time with this group of people, losing a bit connection with my yeah, my old group of friends that I had known since I was, some of them I'd known since I was like 6 or 7 years old, and then moving to another place, being totally absorbed into this professional life as a speed skater, which was in many ways great, but it was also a very big change and totally different also trainings program. We were doing much more of the skating, which is, I don't know if you are familiar with it, but from my perspective, speed skating is, for almost everyone doing it, it's a really demanding just to do the movement and stuff. If you haven't done it, it's difficult to understand. But I try to when I try to find my words to describe it, I think it's like a mix of the triple jump. Speed skating is like the triple jump in the track and field, like the triple jump. So it's like a long distance, or let's say from 1500 meter and up. It's like a triple jump, but you're doing 300 steps or 1,000 steps, and it's like hitting every step perfect. And so you're doing like 1,000 steps for the longest distance. That's speed skating in a sense. So and with that kind of so it's from my perspective, it's really difficult to do. I mean, if you, let's say, triple jump, they don't do triple jump very often. But in speed skating, it has been a tradition that you specialization. You do it a lot. You do it maybe 6 or 7 sessions a week, maybe more, of the skating. And I came from a background where we only had, I think we had 3 training times a week in my hometown at that time. So we were doing three 1-hour sessions a week on the ice, and we were doing lots of other training around it, different dryland stuff and biking and running and stuff. But then coming from that and going to a total program with, let's say 7 or 8 ice sessions a week, and lots of high intensity. It's difficult to do. Like doing easy endurance on the skates is, I would say, it's really difficult. Very few people are doing it. I mean, people are doing sessions where they skate 60 minutes and they call them their easy sessions, or their laps workouts or something like that. But from my experience, it's just a few of the skaters that really can do it. And like skate zone 1, it's like it's very, I think it's like the 10K skaters that are at the highest level. Some parts of the year they could do it.
And
And
Johan,
obviously
maybe
that's
maybe as context for our listeners, the fact of you are going like 50K an hour in the ice ring, right? And every stroke you take has to be thoughtful, otherwise you can crash yourself into the wall and have an accident or break an ankle or something. So there is the component of the technical side of things, right? On top of you are going full speed, and you need the demand of the actual aerobic and anaerobic capacity into the game.
Yeah, and it's also that, and there's a higher strength component in the corners always, and I like it's difficult to. I've actually tried later to do myself more zone 1 volume on the skates. This was after I stopped 2010 for a period of time, but when you do that, the technique is so far off from what is the real skating. So I think it's not really. Maybe someone can do it in the future, and get really good results. But I think so far no one has really succeeded in that. You can see it also in the Netherlands, because they have they have like a pro series that they call marathon races. So they do normally 100 laps, which is same distance, which is a marathon around. They do 100 or 200 laps normally. So they have lots of skaters that do a lot of big volume skating. Like normally, I would say bigger volume than many of the good 10K skaters, for example. But it's actually very few skaters that are coming from that and really going into the World Cup circuit and doing it good. There are a few ones, but if the volume of the skating was like a big crucial factor, many more people from that competition environment, I think, would be able to step over and just be at the highest level right away because they're skating so much.
So
yeah,
Johan,
yeah,
you
that
are
was a long
already
answer. I don't even remember the question anymore.
No, that's good. But you are already heading into the area that we really wanted to discuss with you, which is you are starting to mention volume, intensity, even frequency to some extent, which are the basics of training. And what really called my attention, and maybe Alan will go deeper into this together with you, is why using the bicycle, why using cross training into such a technical sport while everyone else is on the ice rink or doing, let me call it traditional, massage, strength and conditioning in the gym. Why kind of like ditching all that and just focusing on the simple parts of training, which is load management, recovery through nutrition, sleep, like how you align all that frequency, intensity, volume, and the simple side of the equation of load management. Maybe Alan, you want to go a little bit deeper on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got to give some background here because when it comes to Nils' story, and it blows my mind. Like when I was reading the How to Skate a 10K manuscript, I was just nodding along like I can't believe that at this level these guys had the balls to just go in and take this approach. And I've never read anything like that and just nodded quite so much as I was going along. But one of the key aspects of it was that a huge portion of the program was not specific, right? Like I think Nils spent 15 months basically not on the ice. He was just riding his bike fundamentally for a large portion of that, coupled with some running, some ultra runs and those sorts of things. So that is such a shift from what Johan's talking about as far as what he experienced, as far as that specific focus on the ice. How did you arrive there? How did you get the balls to say, we're going to do something completely different here, and this guy's just going to ride and train like a cyclist essentially for the better part of a year, and we hope that's going to lead to some really good things when he returns to the ice.
Yeah, I think I mean this goes into also very specific stuff about Nils, I think, but in general, I think that my own experience was like it has been quite common for or let's put it this way, it's not very common that people touch the ice all year around in skating. Normally there is the preseason, and maybe people go to like a summer skate camp for like 2 weeks or something, and then in September people start to skate a little bit, and from early October it's like full on. During my career, it's been increasing a little bit. Maybe now people go to a couple of weeks in June, a couple of weeks in August, and then it's kind of starts in September. So it's been getting more and more skating. My own experience, and what was also Nils' experience from his earlier years, was that normally within like 3 or 4 weeks on the ice, you were very close to your like top level on the skating side. So the program that we did obviously wouldn't have worked with someone who was not very good technically already. But both my experience and Nils' experience was that you can, if you just get lots of time on the ice for, let's say, 3-4 weeks, you'll be very close to perfection on the technique side, to at least to your earlier highest level. So we were not really afraid to step away from the skating I mean, it's, like I said, it's common to step away from it, but to step away for a longer period of time. I think also, I mean, this sounds a bit weird maybe, but in some sports, I've been coaching a little bit in team sports in Sweden. Not really on the highest level, but I've been doing like conditioning for a few teams here in my region, and in some of those sports, people do sports because they love to do the sport. They love to play soccer or whatever it is. And I think both me and Nils, that's why we were a good match. We were kind of ourselves into sports because we like the skating, but we really want to do it at the top level. We'd much rather skate a couple of times a year on the world class level than to skate many times because we enjoy it. So if we have to choose a little bit between those, it's much more. We were much more drawn to to skating a couple of times on what is the absolute highest level. That kind of experience. And with the team sports, like I said, then you see people. So that can be okay. So that's one part of it. The other part is coming from my own the input or what I learned through my own career was also that those times where I would enter the season in my best shape was when I've had good time to really do lots of big, easy volume. I was inspired a lot by Phil Maffetone during my career, and I tried to kind of balance this, what I thought was kind of craziness that was within the skating, with all this intensity that was in the program during all this intensity that was in the program during all the skating sessions. Also, all of the dryland sessions that were done was really high, like heart rate spiking, really high, like sessions could be like 3 times 15 minutes of skating jumps, for example, different varieties, no rest in between. And those kind of sessions are really like uh, yeah, they take really so if you mix that up with skating and threshold on the bike, and I mean, it was all intensity. So I was trying to do larger aerobic easy volume to kind of balance that out. Also, while I was on camps and while I was within these the different structures that I was in, I was with the Norwegian team, for example, for a couple of years. I was in other Norwegian training groups. I was also with, yeah, I was with Swedish training groups also. So in the end, for me and Nils, I think it wasn't so difficult to to go with an approach that did a really long block of easy aerobic work.
All right. So getting back to it, we were talking about Phil Maffetone as a
Yeah.
big influence. And I know Johan and I have had quite a few conversations around health and around AFib and arrhythmias in athletes. So I'd love to explore that a little bit more. You know, what was your experience? You know, you mentioned that you had a lot of stress in moving to this different program with a lot more intensity. And I think it was probably sort of 2005-ish that you started to have these AFib problems or arrhythmia. I think you had atrial flutter, is that right?
I had
But
atrial, I had fibrillation,
yeah.
atrial fibrillation. Yeah.
So how does that come into play in your philosophy? You know, do you think that some of the things that you talked about with that emphasis on intensity and really kind of hitting those anaerobic workouts over and over and over again, do you think that came into play, and did that kind of shift you as a coach into more of a health-focused aerobic philosophy, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. When I my contact with Phil Maffetone, or my like intro into him, was I think probably it was through following Jonas Kolting, who was a Swedish triathlete, and he was pretty outspoken about that. Phil, yeah, he was doing talks and stuff. I think I uh, I heard something from him about it, and then I had a coach in my club who gave me one of his books. The one, I think it was a Swedish translation, but it's in fitness and in health, one of the earlier books. And from that, I kind of realized that if there's any truth to what this guy is saying, the program that I am in, or the programs that I have been in, are really really far away from it, and really not giving me a chance to reach my potential in the long run. Of course, it was also inspiring to read about the stuff, yeah, the work with Mark Allen that he had done, and yeah, and the performances from him. So I think, yeah, from that, I started to in my own career at that time, I started to look into, more like what is the minimum dose I can give, and to still have development. And because I was already as a junior, I was on a really high level. I skated the Olympics 2002, and I was around, top 10, 15 in the world. So it's not, I mean, it doesn't take so much to get to be among the absolute best. So that in that way, I started to try to see if there was some, if I could get something out of Phil's philosophy. And obviously, I had some false starts also with that during my own skating, because it's, um, yeah, like I talked about earlier, trying to do uh, a couple of times I tried to do the, you know, uh, easy endurance skating, do much more of that. But uh, i- after a while, I also realized that it had, with the angles and how the specificity of the skating, and what that you really want to. I, the technique is so important. So you really you because when you try to do volume in skating, it also really kills you. If you try to do what people think is zone one in skating, even if, I mean, we were doing lots of lactate all the time. I was burning like probably 10 or 15 strips every day lactate at this time. But anyway, it's yeah, intensity. Even if you burn lots of strips, when you don't really know what you're doing, it's, and also I mean, intense in the skating, it's like, you know it's not only lactate levels, it's also high muscular strain,
The muscular
even
strain,
if
yeah.
you are
Like in running, pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah, like in running. And it's a lot of time under tension. like it's really like big gear training in a sense. You know, the frequency is like let's see if I remember it. I think it's pretty much so let's say it's 8, 16. It's like maybe 46 or something, 46 push-offs per per lap. So that's yeah.
And
So
one
it's
lap is about 30 seconds, right? So
it's 30
that
seconds
gives you
about.
an idea.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
push so if you so it's like
And
so maybe it's
Johan,
46 cadence. Yeah.
yeah. So combine this approach to health. Obviously, the lower intensity, you find a way to achieve that through easy dry land training, basically the bike. Because I saw pictures of you quite young, to be honest. Probably it was in those 2000s, riding a bike, and maybe that was the introduction to what you would later give your athletes, right? And what we see now in the Swedish developed skiers like Nils.
Yeah.
But also one of
Yeah.
the and maybe we'll get more into the bike as a weapon, because we were talking about this, Alan and myself, for the last 10 years, and I was even advising many runners to go more in the bike. And it's always what you were saying before and what you wrote in your Substack and what Alan has been preaching probably for 20 years. Specificity doesn't translate necessarily in great performance if you keep that through the season. And the way you partition the season into work capacity, basically, so the aerobic base, and then the threshold capacity and the technique side of things into the ice ring, which I would call work rate. And it's a concept that we have discussed here many times. It's very, very interesting. But when you go into more like a micro level, and you take this concept of the 5 days of work and 2 days of rest, which is kind of unheard, and it's very difficult to for even for amateur athletes to take this approach, because they like to do the work, right? Not to say a professional, because you feel you are wasting 2 days of work every week. So I know this is a concept you didn't develop, because as far as I know, Per Elofsson was reportedly to use this in the past as well, and he was very successful. I think when he stopped using this, he became not very successful when he back off from the 5.2 into like 6.1 and so on. So maybe you want to elaborate a little bit more on why you took that radical approach into, and it's very, very simple, on training, load, recovery, and the nutrition and the sleep, not like going too much into like red light therapy and cryotherapy and massage and all these like 1%ers that everyone at professional and amateur sport are looking to improve, and they are missing the point, which is training load management, sleep well, and eat properly.
Yeah, I think we actually the 5.2. It was like I had been working when I was skating myself. I worked a little bit with where I worked for some seasons, and I had like every season I had discussions with Hans Christer Holmberg, H.C. Holmberg, who's a physiologist and has worked a lot with skiers in Sweden. And he had also been a little bit involved with Per Elofsson. So I know about the concept. But actually, when I was working with Nils, the plan to do it came around because of the skydiving that Nils was doing, because he was really into doing skydiving as a way to relax, and he really enjoyed it, and I think he learned a lot from doing it also, actually, that he had benefits that benefited his skating, but he really loved to do it, and to do that in the jumping was always in the weekends. So and then you want to jump as much as possible in the weekends, which is, I mean, that's not total relaxation either,
Recovery.
but it's not 5 hours of biking or running, but it's a different stimuli. And he also had like a really good community during especially that first 15 months block that he did. So he was basically living at the skydiving club and doing his training in the weeks and jumping in the. So I think for him it was, so that's how we came into it. But then it started to. I mean, from my perspective, I was following his. The training he was doing, obviously, in Training Peaks and stuff, and you could see early that his. He was able to do a really big volume, even if he had the 2 days off. So the reason that I dared to keep advising him to do it, because he was also a little bit, once he got more into the, started to have a little bit success from the program and doing good races and stuff. We had it also up for discussion to start to do more training. I mean, only do 1 rest day a week. But I mean, there was really no reason, because he was able to do so much volume anyways, and from our understanding, the recovery he had from the 2 days was something different than if he would have had 1 day. I mean, it's difficult to like quantify it exactly and say this is one of the big things that made him the great athletes he became. But the thing is, we could do a lot of load, and after only 2 days, he would be like, the metrics would be back to a baseline level, and he was also craving the training already after. So he could train Monday, Friday, rest 2 days, and really wanting to do the training again. Normally, there was also, like, as Gordo has. Obviously, and probably you guys also, that there were many times when there was more rest than 2 days. I mean, it was at least 2 days rest all the time, every week. But there were many times when there were, especially when the training was a bit on the crazy side, a few times, then it was, it could be also 3 days. Or I always, because of the volume was so big, when you look back at it. So I would always advise him to take more rest, actually, than was. I like you said earlier, I had the problem myself, and like most endurance athletes, if it's like, if you feel bad, you take half a day off maybe, or you do you do the same session but
You do a
easier and
recovery
stuff.
ride
But
at
Nils
200
was
watts.
actually really. Yeah, but Nils was actually really good at. I think we both had a joined, like, picture of what was the important thing to do, and it was during this aerobic season. It's getting the long bike or runs in, and then so in a sense it was easy for us to so if, let's say, the baseline was 5-hour bike ride, and if for some reason it was not, he couldn't do it, then he was like, he would never blame himself, and I would never blame him that he couldn't push through a bike ride like that. I knew if he couldn't do it, then the starting point was not good enough. So then you need to rest, recover, so that you can have a better starting point to be able to
So
do
Johan,
that
just
work again.
to provide a little bit of context here, I
Yeah.
was calculating in kilocalories how much kilocalories of work was Nils doing when you were working 5 days a week, like a proper work. You work in the week and then you take the days off in the weekend. And he was, in my calculation, correct me if I'm wrong, anywhere between 30,000 to 40,000 kilocalories from Monday to Friday, which accounts for about 30 hours of training at around 1,000 calories, because he was a big guy, right? He was about 82 kilos in the aerobic base season.
Yeah, Aerobic base, he was 85, around 85 kilos.
So, which, I mean, just to
So
put into context, it's a lot of workload what he was able to do in 5 days. Even many professional athletes
yeah,
can't do that workload in 7 days. That's what I want to put it. So he had an ability probably to eat probably as well and to sleep well.
yeah, yeah. I think he was always yeah, he had a good capacity for eating, and he was eating all the time. During this, he was eating. Yeah, when we especially during that first period, he was staying at our place a lot, or for some periods of time, he was staying at at our place. And my wife would make lasagna for like 10 people, and he would like finish it off after dinner, like the five lunches that we were going to put in the freezer. He would just finish it off in 10 minutes. Yeah. So
Did you guys ever have any like metabolic testing? Do you have any idea of his fat oxidation during those times?
we did. We had some. He had done a lot actually from. He did maybe once or twice a year his whole career. Actually, we didn't do so much in the last season. We did. I think we didn't do it the last season. We did the second to last season a couple of times. We tried to. We were also really into, because we had to. He had to travel to do that test, so we were really trying to cut down the travel. We cut. We were pretty hard on cutting down the travel and stuff to minimize that.
Yeah.
But
Suffice
he
to say,
did.
if he's doing
What?
30,000 kcal a week, the fat oxidation is yeah probably pretty solid to support that sort of load.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, especially when you consider he was pushing probably in his first ventilatory threshold up to 320 watts, because as far as I heard, it's his second ventilatory threshold was about 410 or 420 watts. So these are pretty elite
yeah,
numbers.
yeah. Yeah, he after the career he got I think 1 or 2 offers to become a bike racer. So only
I'm not
from the
surprised.
numbers, I guess.
Yeah, it was
Which,
pretty
by the way,
impressive actually,
there
and
is.
I guess
Go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
going along with kind of this long base development period. In the beginning, his long rides were not terribly impressive by elite endurance athlete standards. They were sort of 200 watts thereabouts, which for a guy who's 85 kilos it's solid, but it's not elite by any bike racing stretch of the imagination. But by the end of that 15-month period, he's doing like 250 watts for 5, 6, 7 hours as part of these
Wow.
long rides. So, he definitely, it was definitely a wake up call to me of, if you put in a really, really long base period, you can improve quite a lot, and I think that's something that a lot of
Yeah,
amateur athletes, that they reach a point where they think they've graduated from the base work, that they don't need these
right.
long base periods anymore. And,
Mm,
that was a great example that even at fairly high levels, you can benefit from these long stretches of pretty much exclusive base work, right? You guys weren't doing threshold, you weren't doing anything fancy during that time. It
right.
was just base. And yeah, 50 watts over the space of 15 months. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, and he was and he could also he could also do that consistently. Like he would do, so he could do like 5 hours 5 days in a row, or 5 to 7 hours 5 days in a row, two 260 or 270. I think that was also what it's one of the things when I'm myself now. I'm trying to get into a little bit better shape, and possibly seeing some more long distance, maybe tries, or I'm doing also swim run events in the future. And when I was working with Nils, the one thing that makes that kind of program is it's very easy to see when you are responding to it, because you're always, in one way, you're always close to the limit, and if you if the watts numbers are going down, you're kind of not responding anymore, and uh, not day to day maybe, but pretty soon, if you can't do it, you're noticing it early, and that's one of the things that is a bit more challenging when you are not really training. That I find challenging when you're not really training to your when you're not really sticking to the limit in training. I mean, because then it's like, you know, if your capacity is you could do 5 times 6 hours to 60 watts, and then you're doing an endurance session that is 3 hours, and it's like, and you're prescribed it's 240 watts. After that, like, you don't know a lot about. You can look, of course, at some heart rate data and compare it to the watts and stuff. You can maybe find something there, but when you operate closer to your limit, it's also a little bit easier to see if things are not going the right way, which is uh, a bit unfortunate, because for us amateurs, we need it a little bit more to notice earlier when things are not going the right way.
That it reminds me, and one of the big influences on myself was an Australian swim coach by the name of Forbes Carlisle, and Forbes was a legendary coach back in Australia of swimmers, and one of the things that I learned from him during the base period, his metric, he had all of his swimmers training 2 hours per session as a standard, right? Because that was the time that they had available at the pool. And his metric was just over these sessions, what was the average distance accomplished per week? So it's exactly what you're talking about, just seeing that work capacity go up. And I think there's a huge focus among amateurs on some of these short measures. Like what can I blast for 5 minutes or 20 minutes as a test? And if we actually started tracking things like you're talking about, where how much work can the athlete get done over these long periods of time, and making sure that we're seeing that go up, I think that a lot of amateurs, that'd be a much healthier sort of standpoint, because as you said, if you're focused on just short sessions, then you're not
Yeah.
getting the same kind of aerobic metric of improvement that you get from just saying, okay, what can I really do over the time that I have in a week?
And I think also for many people that read his document, are some of the sessions look so uh, like they look very epic, and also the threshold block also, and you get really focused on the numbers, and it's also the work is so big for people, I think, that they um so they want to kind of do one of those sessions, but when I was working with him, the focus was all the time, on Monday. If the training was Monday to Friday, it was always, we were always thinking of the pacing the week, so we could do the, you know whatever, 75 to 90 minutes of threshold work every day. So the way that was, of course, the workout on Monday was hard, but it was by no means an all-out effort. Like it's a it because you can't in that way, you can't get through that week in that way. It's impossible. And that's a challenge for people trying to get something out of that, the document, because they see these epic sessions, and the thing is, if he wanted to do epic sessions, those numbers would be totally different and much more crazy, but that was never the
But
focus,
I think
actually.
I
but
think that's
Johan,
that's the most impressive. That's the most impressive thing for me is, and coming from a swim background, and we talked about all of the mistakes that we've made. a lot of swimmers are thrown into these heavy threshold programs where essentially we're trying to do Nils's threshold program right from the start, where you're trying to do these 4 or 5 sessions per week and you're doing, an hour, 4,000 meters as part of a threshold set, and you just don't have that base, and then you fall apart. Whereas Nils, by putting in that huge 15-month period of just pure aerobic work, he got to the point where he could realistically handle those 4 or 5 true hard threshold sessions per week. And I think that's what a lot of folks miss. They skip over that 15-month aerobic period, and they're just like, oh, okay, I see these threshold sessions. They're what made him really good. But you really can't have one without the other, and that was the lesson for me. Especially being a big guy. Like, I've seen smaller female swimmers handle that sort of threshold work, but when you're 85 kilos and you're doing 400-watt threshold sessions 4 or 5 times a week, 70 to 90 minutes at a time, that's an incredible, just an incredible base to get to the point that you can back that up.
Yeah, and I would like to also highlight, you mentioned, Johan, limits. And I think most of people in endurance sports, we are somehow trying to explore those limits. But what I see continually, even I saw this with myself when I was elite, is we start to explore those limits in the wrong path. So you want to see how hard you can go before laying down how easy and how long you can go for, right? So I think reframing the question on limits is not always how I can get my limit to the top, is what is my limit now? What's my limit to boardroom? How long I can go easy, really, really easy, walk, jog, soft pedal 150 watts. And let's see how long I can manage that. And after I earned the right to start doing the hard work, then I start exploring upper limits. Jumping into the upper limits right from the get-go, I think, is the recipe of disaster of amateur sport in general, and is the end of the careers of many sport at professional and elite level. That will be one. And second, how the important question for a coach like us, that we are advising athletes and people and basically selling them the idea that this is the path. What did you do with Nils and what you have done with other athletes to actually convince them that compounding works? Because compounding, as Gordo has said many times, and we have discussed with Alan, is very difficult to sell because you need to reflect yourself into the future, which is not very human, right? You want the return over investment as soon as possible. So how you manage that with athletes?
If we talk about Nils, I think he was when we started to work. We had already very good connection when we started to work together. I was a little bit involved when he was a younger skater for a while, when he quit after he had become a junior world champion. So we actually talked about this a couple of months ago, but I think he wanted to work with me because he knew I had some experience and I had really like I don't know if it was Alan who said it earlier here, that I had learned from I had done some major mistakes in my career, and Nils knew it. He had seen me do some mistakes and not really reaching my potential. And I also, I think our connection got pretty strong early on because we had a similar experience as juniors, that we both were like, we had a coach, we did everything the coach said, and we became junior world champions. And then that was kind of it. And then you start to think, okay, what now? I do this another 10 years and then I can become a senior world champion. But the lifestyle was not really as like sustainable, and you had already felt it in some ways. It wasn't really working out, and you had said no to everything else in life for a big part of your growing up. So at that period, so this is a long story, but I try to make it short. At this period when Nils had stopped and was kind of maybe not coming back at all, this was around 2014, 15 something. Then because I had, when I was in Norway and training, I had that was my, when I became junior world champion, then I had a couple of years that was not going so well. And then I was training in Norway for a couple of years. And there I was training with a bigger team, and people were, obviously on the highest level, but everyone was also, people were having other lives, other stuff in life. They had a family, or they had, that, from my understanding as a junior young skater, and also from Nils' understanding, that was kind of impossible thing to do if you wanted to become the best. You can't do it that way. This is, as a junior, you eat, sleep, and train, and you follow the program, and that's how you become a world champion. And we had both that experience. But I had learned through my years in Norway early on that it's like I phrased it to him this way: it's not the person who is eating the least amount of dessert that is going to be the world champion. That's not how that's not a detail that is decisive for you, because that's a little bit of that mindset was creeping into both of us, I think, as a junior. It's like doing everything perfect, and then this is how you do it. So coming back to your question, from this, like the connection we got around this, and what that he found a way to go into the skating and really do his skating in a way that kind of live the rest of his life to the fullest also, but still doing the skating and doing it as it's a nice lifestyle. Yeah. So I think that connection that we got from that, that discussion, and that led him to come back into the skating. And with that, if we talk about this, selling in the compounding of the base work, I think with me working with Nils, it was very easy to sell it in, because he loved doing that. He really loved to do it. I mean, he could do only the base work and these, the adventures of the running, later on a little bit of ski mountaineering. He loved to do it. All these different stuff that I also let him, like the rule was only, lower body endurance work, and big volume. And in that way, I think even if it if it wouldn't give him the gains from it, he would, like, he loved to do it, so I think in that way it was an easy sell for him. And he had already experienced a little bit in his early years that we had similar experiences, that, doing the bigger volume led to being in a better place in October and led to better results. So I think in that
But
way
Johan,
it was.
what would you say?
Yeah, go on.
What would you say to our listeners in this case, when it comes to, I'm an amateur, I can only train, let's say, 15 hours a week, so it's not worth, because they will always tell you, tell Alan, these are elite athletes, they devote 30, 40 hours a week of training, so that's why they can do a lot of easy volume. I have a family, I have a work, I'm doing this for fun. That's the sellout I get all the time. So I need some intensity to really have fun. If not, it gets too boring. So what's your pitch to the audience who is waiting to hear something from an experienced coach, for them, that they want performance, and they want fun, and they want to do it right?
Yeah. I think that two things about that. Number one, you have to really think about if you want that performance on race day, you have to make probably you have to you have to negotiate with yourself a little bit about how there are some you can't have the fun every week if you want to have the best result on race day. And number two, I would try to I mean, if you have 15 hours, that you can get a lot out of that, of course. And I think you can also get a lot out of that doing only some easy base work, some one work, or I mean, and what many people are doing is that they're screwing up their base work by doing the intensity. So if you can get better results from taking out stuff, and possibly, I mean, probably you can get better results by just taking it out, not even replacing it, I think. But if you also can replace it, then you have bigger. And also, as you guys know, when you start going into these work capacity blocks, your work capacity also goes up for everything in life. So probably you'll figure out a way to do some more hours if you get into that mode. That would be
Amazing.
my
Thank
I
you.
pitch.
think the take home is we've kind of gone retro to the Maffetone approach still works, right? Like so many people have
Yeah.
forgotten that, and they feel like they have to have all of these fancy sessions in their week, but a pure aerobic approach where you take an extended period of time, multiple months, and you're just focusing on building that aerobic base. If it can work for athletes of your level and Nils' level, then it certainly works for the amateur athletes who have a whole lot of aerobic gains to potentially accomplish. And I think there's no better lesson than that. From your willingness to experiment, and yours and Nils' willingness to experiment over these long periods of time of doing just aerobic work, and the amazing results that came from it. So. I think that's
And
a
I
great
think
token.
one question you asked earlier, how we dared to do it, and I think also in the skating, especially in the long distance skating, there has been doing the metabolic testing and finding the lactate LT2 and working on improving that. That has been a big correspondence between higher LT2 and better skating results. There has also been for the shorter distances, there's been lots of stuff done around wind gate testing compared to the performance in 1500 meter. But my own experience, Nils' experience, and also data from other skaters has shown that improving LT2, given everything else is the same, or also improving, let's say, technique-wise and stuff, then you will be doing better times on the long distance. So, and we also, and I think that the actually LT2 was improving, like the threshold block was, you saw a bump from the threshold block in that, but the big thing that moved LT2 up was actually the aerobic season, actually. And then there was a little bump further from the big threshold block, but the biggest bump was actually from doing the easy stuff.
I see
And
that
that's
all the
not what
time, and
people don't believe that,
uh,
really. But
people think you have to try. Again, it comes back to that specificity and over reliance on that. People think if you want to improve threshold, you have to train at threshold. But time and time again, I see it. I'll have athletes do no threshold work and just a lot of base work, and all of those changes get carried up the curve. And that's exactly exactly what you're talking about. So, yeah, this is just music to my ears for sure.
Maybe just one comment here, because yesterday I met with a good triathlete here around where I live, and I was doing a 35K easy run, truly zone one, like 110 BPMs. My heart rate max is like 185. And he's like, man, why are you running so slow? And then I try to explain him, and I'm like, no. He tells me, I'm going also zone one. And I'm like, what's your heart rate, man? 140. And what's your max heart rate? 180. I'm like, I don't think that's zone one. Like, I mean, I just did an Ironman like a few weeks ago, and I did like 9 hours, and you did one, and you did like 11 and a half hours. So explain me how that works. So my point being, I think we tend to overestimate our zones because it feels nice to go faster, but it's the further away you are from your main race, the more chance you have to really try going as easy as you can and see what benefits are going, your season and your next seasons, because everyone is thinking about only the next season. And I think the advantage that you had, Johan, with your athletes, and I want also to get into youth development, because actually Gordo left a question for you that I want to ask you regarding youth, is the ability to see 4 years, right? An Olympic cycle or 2 Olympic cycles, where I want to be for 4 years from now, where I want to be 8 years from now. And when you are taking up to young talents and you want to develop those young talents, you don't care too much what's going to happen the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. You really want to focus on how I can develop this into a professional, elite, enjoyable, and sustainable athlete that doesn't ditch himself into one identity. You mentioned this, that he has the ability to have a life outside of sport, to be mentally sane. So maybe you want to touch upon this, and at the same time, maybe it's a lot, but answer the question that Gordo had, and it's, what would be your recommendation for a, let's say, junior triathlete that wants to get to a really good level into long distance in the future, right? So what's basically the development path that a younger athlete needs to see himself or herself looking forward, and what they need to do now in order to get there, not to rush the development or rush the process?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. With that, I mean, obviously, I'm not a swim coach. Let's be clear on that. But from what I know from the coaching work I've done, is that if you want to be on the highest level, you have. I think it's important to prioritize technical development in youth athletes. So that obviously has to be a big part of it. In speed skating, in many ways, that has been done in a way that I think is way too much intensity for young skaters. So I think to find ways to really work on technical improvement in your modalities, I guess from what I know from triathlon, it's it's really important with the swim. Me, as being an aspiring swimmer, trying to move myself up as a swimmer, I realize how difficult it is when you get older to improve on it, even if I am improving, and but it's a big thing. So that's one aspect of it. For the rest, I would try to focus on doing finding the not the limit, but finding where, like you said, Iñaki, like a sustainable way that you can do lots of volume in the modalities that you want to become good at, and especially the bike is of course safe, but also, I mean, finding maybe other modalities outside of the triathlon also will help you get a better body control and coordination that can help you improve in all of your sports in the future, I think, and doing the volume. I mean, when you see, uh, it takes a long time to build an athlete that can do, I don't know how many hours the best athletes on the in the triathlon are doing right now, but they're probably doing like 1,500 hours or something. And to build it up to that takes a long time. You have to start. Um you have to build it up carefully, but you have to build it up. And to find a sustainable way to do that is to find the joy in it, and to I think a key is to triathlon is very good in that way because you have the different sports. You can kind of switch around with them and not really burn yourself out in. It's also like it's also you can get to know different groups of people through different sports. You can it's not. It can also help with the identity, that you're not in one group of people where you're all judged by how good you are at this sport, and you get attention because you're good at the swimming in this way. And so I would try to widen the perspective for youth athletes and do lots of work. I have to say one more thing that I came to think of when you were talking, Iñaki. That's about the long distance run. I've been experiencing myself a little bit because I've had problems with my durability and the running earlier. That's why I could also help Gord a bit with his coming back to running, because I've had some serious issues myself. So I've had to juggle that a lot for many years on and off. But I've been trying to do the rucking. I've been building up on the with the weighted backpack and walking a lot. And my feeling is that it has, and it's like I have a very low resting heart rate and low zones. So when I'm walking, I like heart rate is, I don't know, 70 maybe or something. But I feel it really is benefiting for my running, the rucking with so, and it's a really easy way, tying back to what we talked about with amateur athletes trying to find the time for training. I mean, if you can get benefits from walking an extra hour a day, I mean, I did it this summer. We walk with, I have a daughter. She's soon 4 years old, and we walk with her in a stroller to get her to sleep every night during the summer. So you walk 1 hour with a backpack. It's a very good. I mean, it helped my running so much, and I got the idea from you, Iñaki.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear, Jan. That's what got me back into triathlon, by the way.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, 2 years of rocking here with Alan and walking. So yeah.
Oh,
Alan, maybe you want to go a little bit because this been a long one, but I think it's worth it. You don't have Johan Röjler every day with you.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Let's do
I
it.
think it's been great to really reiterate to the listeners just how much a lot of these kind of long-term developmental principles apply all the way up to the elite level. All of those things that you were talking about, where it's important to do things that are fun and sustainable and to be a part of your community, and all of those things are things that you did with Nils in this preparation to become, the best speed skater in the world at the time, So I think a lot of people mistakenly think that you need to graduate from that and your mindset needs to change. But a lot of the time that is what ultimately limits you. When you start thinking that way, that I have to get serious now and my entire life has to revolve around this particular thing. And I think you've made some really important points for athletes at all levels, that it has to be fun if in order to be sustainable, in order for you to adapt to it it has to be enjoyable and fun, and I think that's, if the listeners can take home anything, I think that's a really important point. So yeah, thank you for reminding people of that message and fighting the good fight. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
And I will
It was
add
very
what I
nice
take
to have
from
this
you.
talk and catch up.
What I take from you,
Go on.
Johan, is first of all the humbleness that you approach the sport that you've been so close for so many years. You always have an eye of even though you are, I believe, an expert, you always play the humble card, which I think, in my view, keeps you learning. And if you are able to learn, you are able to improve. And I think you've done a lot of profound change, not only in your country, in the discipline that you are dedicated to your life, which is ice skating, but you have had profound impact not only through your athletes, which is the case of Nils, but I think to other coaches like myself, where very basic principles like finding your limit, what that truly means, and how to help other athletes to find their limits in a healthy way, how to build identities outside of a sport, which is absolutely crucial for amateurs, because sometimes that becomes their identities, as equal as dangerous as for a professional, sometimes even more, I think. And the attitude towards base, right, to doing the easy work that later becomes really, really hard, no matter your level, because you lay out the ground. And the ability to cross train, not to over specialize in your discipline, keeps you much more injury free, not only from the body but also from the mental health side of things. So it keeps you longer into the sport. And which brings me to my last point that I take from you, which is the simple yet very powerful approach you have to load management and recovery through the most basic principles. No fluff, no nothing, just rest, recover, and manage the load. So thank you once again, Johan, and I think our audience will take a lot out of this.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. It was nice talking to you guys. It was great, and I hope we can catch up in the future maybe, and keep staying in touch.
Yeah, I would love that.
Thank you.
I think these kind of brains trusts where we get people together just communicating openly about their experiences, there's nothing better than that, and we as coaches need more of it. So thank you again for your
That's good.
humility and willingness to do that. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.